guys, it's Emma and I'm back today for you with another video, and today I am doing a book review. That is right, and the book that I am reviewing today is A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. This is a memoir style book that is telling the story of Lady Trent, or Isabella. And in this alternate history world, she is the woman to have brought dragons out of mystery and misunderstanding and into the light of modern science. But of course, before she was the Lady Trent, she was a bookish young girl with a passion for dragons. This is a series and it's a collection of her memoirs, this one being the first. So for content warnings, we have death of a loved one, miscarriage, gore, and animal cruelty / death. Now, of course, for every single book that I talk about, whether you want to read them or not, of course, look up your own trigger warnings just to make sure. With that being said, I completely forgot to write down the content warnings when I was reading this book, which is an oddity for me. So nevertheless, the trigger warnings that I gave are the ones that I personally really remember, the ones that stick out to me from this book, and also the more general ones that I would say the general public who has read this book all agree on. Okay, so I apologize for that, but nevertheless, those are the content warnings. I've said this a few other times in different videos on this channel. A book can objectively be 2 stars, but subjectively be 4, all right? A book does not have to be well written in order for it to be fun. And vice versa, you know what I mean? This book, I subjectively really enjoyed it. However, girlfriend, technical problems galore. Nevertheless, this is going to be my spoiler-free review on A Natural History of Dragons. Before we actually get started, I want to put a little disclaimer right here. This is going to be a negative review, so therefore I do not mean any hate whatsoever to fans of this book, fans of this author, or the author. These are all my opinions. My opinions are subjective. Reading itself is subjective, and I had a very odd time with this book, and I'm going to tell y'all why. So, before we get started, I would really appreciate it if you guys would look down in the description box for all the links there that I have for you guys pertaining to stuff going on in the world right now, and those links will be down there for you guys to interact with and to share. And then down in the comment section, let me know whether or not you guys have read this book, whether you like this book, whether you don't like this book, what y'all's favorite dragon books are. Honestly, please recommend me some books that you think might make me fall back in love with dragons, because I'm desperate at this point, all right? So with that being said, let's just get running into it. So the first pro that I have with this book is the inclusion of the sciences. And by that, I mean it's physics, chemistry, anatomy, and others when referencing dragons. And I found that so cool. It just really cemented the concept of dragons being not common, but not rare, uncommon wild animals. And I love that concept in fantasy. And in this book, we're set in an alternate history version of the Victorian era with dragons as uncommon wildlife, you know? And it's just so cool. It honestly reminded me a lot of the Spiderwick Chronicles, not the books. I didn't read the books.
Hate to break it to you, Angel.
The movie. I loved that movie. You could not get me to stop playing that movie on my little portable DVD player. You know, the one that looked like a waffle iron? Yeah, okay? I love the Spiderwick Chronicles, and it's just one of those things where it's like you're discovering all of these new creatures and you're bringing them into the light and into people's understanding, and you're like just demystifying the whole thing, and meanwhile these creatures exist in real life. They're just rare. You know what I mean? It's, I just love it. It's such a cool concept. That is one of the things that I genuinely loved about this book. My second pro that I have for this book is the writing style. It's fast, and it's the style of a memoir all the way through, which surprisingly does not make the book drag. At least not to me, okay? I, once again, found myself flying through this book. Excuse the pun.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I don't know, just, I really also enjoyed the kind of commentary that the older Isabella, who is actively writing the memoirs, makes when she's telling these stories. It'll be like, and then my younger self did this, this, and this. Parentheses, by the way, I think differently about this now, or something like that. And I just thought it was really humanizing, and I thought it was really funny at some points. Just the memoir style of this book was done in a way that I found very refreshing. The third pro that I have, guys, look, I'm a sucker for pictures. This book has illustrations. First of all, remember how I was talking about with the first pro that I loved the fact that it included the sciences? The cover is like an anatomical model. I love that. And then, of course, because Isabella is herself a burgeoning scientist, she often draws, of course, the dragons. For example, we have this one. And then, oh my gosh, I'm gonna show y'all one more because some of these pictures are spoilery. So, let me see here. Where's another one? Oh my gosh, wait a minute. Am I stupid? Okay, wait.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
I was about to say, okay, and then we have this. Like, oh, it's just so cool. I love me a good piece of art, especially in a book. And also, if you're gonna give me different designs for different dragons, of course I wanna see what each of them look like so I can see the differences and the distinctions between them all myself. And that's what these illustrations allow you to do, and I really appreciate that. Okay, so do you remember how one of my pros was the writing style? Yeah. Unfortunately, the first con is the dodgy writing, okay? First off, several typos. Like, I'm talking about missing punctuation marks. Several missing punctuation marks and missing words. What are we doing? As much as I liked the memoir style of this book, at times the writing feels pretty dry, particularly when we're dealing with devastating things that happen to our main characters. These devastating things that, you know, we would all naturally be like, oh my gosh, towards, they don't feel as impactful in this book because of just this detached way that they're told. I don't know. And I felt that was definitely a disservice. Furthermore, we ourselves feel detached as an audience from Lady Trent. Even though this memoir is essentially her talking to us, just the way it's told is not... Like, I'm Lady Trent, y'all are the audience. There's a wall. Does that make sense? My second con. Look, this is called A Natural History of Dragons. Where? Where are the dragons? Yes, I understand that it's Lady Trent's memoir, and therefore it's going to be from a human perspective. And yes, there are one or two instances where when we have encounters with dragons, they are drawn out. But most of the encounters with dragons that we have are when they're dead. And I guess we do get action scenes, but any that we do get that particularly involve dragons are very, very short and are oftentimes had almost in the peripheral, if that makes sense. Like, Isabella will be running away, and good for her. It's one of the few good decisions that she ever makes in this book, but we'll get to that.
Girl, the shade of it all.
Isabella will be running away from whatever skirmish is going on behind her, and every now and then maybe she'll see like a gigantic shadow like swoop down out of the sky or whatever. It just kind of reiterates that there is a distinct lack of dragons in this book. Yes, of course, we do see them in terms of scientific exploration and discovery, but if you're looking for like a dragon book, you might not like this one, okay? This is more so a book with dragons in it, if that makes sense. And even honestly, that is a stretch. Yes, this book is about scientific inquiry, But even with that, I expected more, I guess, just observations, you know, because observation is a big part of scientific exploration in and of itself. So even with this, I was expecting, oh, okay, they're going to be like perched on rocks with some binoculars. You know what I mean? Looking for wingtips or scales or some shit like that. Or, oh my gosh, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, oh my gosh, it's Aragon or some shit like that, you know? But at least with those observations, the audience would get to see the dragons that, I might be speaking for myself here, but that we want to see. There is just a distinct lack of dragons in this book, which is very, very disappointing, I think, for everybody involved. For the third con, we need to talk about our main character, Miss Isabella, Lady Trent herself. I thought the bitch was irritating as hell. Not gonna lie, okay? However, I was waiting to see growth. And we did, and I did enjoy that. I always like seeing growth when it comes to characters. I understand, yes, she's a teenager. Yes, she is sheltered, partly because she has such rich parents. I understand all of that, but damn. The lack of common sense that this girl has, common sense was chasing her. But Miss Trent was faster. Like, the amount of plot armor this girl has is honestly unbelievable. The amount of times she cannonballs into extremely dangerous situations, but miraculously comes out unscathed. I'm starting to think that she's just immortal at this point, or she has been blessed by whatever deity of luck exists, okay? Because just wow, what I wouldn't give for this type of luck. Now, again, to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, she meets smugglers at one point in this book. And of course, because smugglers are smugglers, they don't necessarily want to talk with a bunch of people all the time, right? Or at least not a bunch of people not already in their smuggling organization, right? That's how you get caught faster. That's how you get your contraband snatched. And 9 times out of 10, if you find a smuggler, at least personally, I don't really want to try and find myself in the same room with that smuggler again, let alone with a different smuggler who happens to be in that same organization. Why? Because I'm trying to mind my business. I'm trying not to get snatched, murdered, and thrown in a ditch. Because somebody out there thinks I might talk, okay? So, with that being said, Isabella at one point meets smugglers, and she like finds their stash, essentially, right? And immediately I'm thinking to myself, okay, we put it in reverse and we get the out of here. Nevertheless, she essentially takes out a pencil and a note, and she writes them very politely, quote unquote, "My apologies for the intrusion. It was an accident and I will speak of it to no one." The way this girl was flipping pennies at the Grim Reaper, the way she had a death wish, I was stunned. Editing them here. So I don't think I did a very good job at explaining just exactly why this particular situation irked me so badly. My problem is not that she fell into the stash. That is just bad luck, baby doll. My problem is her leaving that dumb-ass note. I read to you what it says already, but after that, quote, "I didn't sign the note, figuring that my feminine handwriting would be identifier enough." Essentially expecting these smugglers to know who she is and trust that she won't go blabbing and let everybody know where this illegal stuff is. To them, you are a rando who could talk and get them caught, all right? It is just wild to me that she expects them to just believe the word of a random person. She should have left the scene. It looked like an animal had fallen into the hidey hole. But no, instead of keeping that as a possible excuse, she decides to leave a note, possibly leading it back to not only her, but the people that she's with. So not only endangering her life, but endangering the lives of everybody else that she's with. I applaud her manners and her being polite. You know, yay. It's the fact that she doesn't think, oh, I'm somewhere where I shouldn't be. I'm somewhere where I shouldn't leave evidence that I was here. I'm just gonna leave. It's truly the idea of mind your business as best as you can. And she was not doing that. Her lack of self-preservation was quite irritating because every single time she would make one of the most harebrained decisions to the point where even Einstein would have had to write that shit down, I would be thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this girl's about to die. Prepare the eulogy. But then she would walk out completely unscathed. Also, she just goes around to damn near everybody and their mother, making these extremely heartfelt, extremely weighted promises almost at the drop of a hat. It just added to her recklessness for me. I cannot stand reckless characters, particularly when they themselves do not recognize their own recklessness. That makes you even more dangerous to be around. The fourth con that I have with this book is the problems with the overall world. And we have to get my personal gripe immediately out of the way. Yes, all right, I understand this is an alternate history set in the Victorian era. So of course, with that, we need to have things that are historically accurate, right? To set the scene, set the tone, set the era. However, did Isabella have to be 17 years old when she marries a 23-year-old?
Brother,
I ultimately, throughout the book, love them as a married couple, but that's not the point, all right? You're telling me that we could take creative liberties with the dragons, but there are no more creative liberties to be had in order to, I don't know, age our main character up at least a little bit to make sure she's not, I don't know, a literal teenager marrying a grown-ass man. I'm sorry. You're telling me that had to be one of the historically accurate things? You have dragons in this bitch! What are you talking about? So that really was just like, ugh. Now, for the overall world and world building, I found it very interesting, especially because, of course, I'm a map girl, what can I say? We have not one map, but we have two. And while I love this and the bits and pieces of the world building that we get in the text, it's a little too vague. There are constant references to niche world building things throughout this book, with little to no explanation. And that gets grating fast, okay? Because that makes me think that, I'm not a part of the bit. I'm not in on the joke because you're not giving me any context clues. You're not giving me any explanation. What does this have to do with what I'm thinking about? What does this have to do with the plot? Because at this point, the way you're just throwing words around, it seems like it doesn't have any impact to the overall story whatsoever. I'm not saying that the niche references to the world building are completely unintelligible. That would be a lie, all right? I could discern quite a bit through context clues and modern day / historical references, but excuse me, but when there aren't very many context clues in general, you know, what exactly am I supposed to do here? I gave A Natural History of Dragons 2 stars. I liked the story. That's why like I said at the very beginning of this video, I enjoyed this subjectively. But I hated the way that it was told. It was told in such a subpar manner, which again is why the objective rating for this book is 2 stars. But with that being said, I do in fact have the second book. However, if the Tropic of Serpents is just as technically bad as A Natural History of Dragons, but is not as enjoyable as A Natural History of Dragons, I'm just gonna DNF the series. So, I am hoping that this one's good, but nevertheless, really liked the story, really cool ideas, just very subpar way of telling them. So you guys, that was my review of A Natural History of Dragons. I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope, beyond hope, quite frankly, that I will be able to find a dragon book that gets my interest back up, okay? Because, oh my gosh, the way I used to be a dragon girl through and through, you could not pry those Wings of Fire books out of my cold, dead hands. You know what? I hope that we can all read series to their completion, and these series do not disappoint. And these series leave us with amazing feelings towards the very end. So you guys, with that being said, I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope you continue to look out for more stuff on my channel. I hope that you guys are staying safe. And lastly, I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.